need to leave a little bit earlier than I thought, and I am going on the road, so that'll be
Oh,
stressful.
yeah.
Hopefully it'll be fine, but yeah, that'll be all right.
How long are you on the road for?
Um, like 6 weeks. So I'm gonna go from, yeah, I know it's annoying. I'm gonna go to DC, then to Lisbon, and then to Warsaw.
Oh,
So not
nice.
like that many places. I think that'll be a little bit manageable, but you know, I don't like being away from home. I got to figure out what to do with my dog, so it's just like a whole rigmarole.
Yeah, yeah. That's crazy. How much touring do you actually do then of a year? Like roughly what percentage of the year are you traveling?
Um, it depends on like if it's a bull or a bear market, a lot of times most of my performances are related to Bitcoin or to libertarian type events. So if it's an election year, then of course I'm going to be more busy on the like liberty side. And then if it's, a good, well, I mean, crypto markets, I'm always doing sort of my staples. Like next week I'm going to be going to DC, and I do the events for Perry and Boring quite a lot. So I've done maybe 3 or 4 of her events. So that I'll do, every year. But I don't know. It depends. Like last year I spent, if I'm going to be doing something where I have to be in Europe and there's 3 weeks in between, I might just stay in and stay with my family or something like that.
Right, right. Sorry, for those that don't know though, who is Perianne Boring?
Oh, Perianne is a dear friend of mine, and she also runs the Chamber of Digital Commerce. I think they're calling it the Digital Chamber now. I'm not sure. They just went through a rebrand. But no, she has been a big voice in the fight for good regulation in the US. I mean, I'm not generally a fan of regulation because I like freedom, but okay, we need regulation, right? Because we need to integrate with the society that is around us. So that stuff is really important to have a freedom-oriented voice at the table, and Perianne and her organization have been doing that for many, many years now.
Wow. So I guess we should really kick off by you introducing yourself, who you are and what you do in the Bitcoin space.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Tatiana Moroz. I am a singer-songwriter. I have been in the Bitcoin space since 2012. I've done a lot of pioneering activities, especially on the music side. And I also do a lot of different performances around the world. And I also speak about different ways that artists can use cryptocurrency to improve their lives.
Amazing. You've been actually in the Bitcoin space for a long time. Like I'm only about 3 years in. So you're really like an OG because 2012 is what 3 years after Bitcoin came out into the world, if you like, for want of a better word. Um, So I can't even imagine how much stuff you've seen. But I'm really curious to basically kick off with, I think we should actually kick off with your Bitcoin journey because you're obviously a singer-songwriter and there's a whole backstory to that. But how did you actually discover Bitcoin?
Sure. So, the reason why I like Bitcoin so much is really because of my love of Austrian economics. So I spent a lot of my life not only making music, but also considering, why music is made and how music can be used to improve the world and how the world works. I had a lot of dystopian novels in my past that I read, and they kind of scared me. And I also was quite inspired by Cat Stevens. His song Peace Train really made a very um, big impact on me. It really illustrated how you could use music to change people and to spread an idea. But there's a lot of kind of bunk kind of documentaries that blame it on this and blame it on that. Where I found that I really resonated was when I discovered the Federal Reserve. And so as a hater of the Federal Reserve, because of its ability to, for example, fund endless wars, which was, my main thing, Bitcoin was a natural fit for me. I can't say that I naturally totally wanted to hear about it because frankly, I don't like technology at all. And I don't like finance people. So it was a bit of a mess.
I spent
But
20 years in finance, so maybe we should end this call right now.
no, I think we could push through because basically I was doing a Ron Paul tribute concert down in DC. I'm sorry, down in Tampa in Florida, and BitPay sponsored my performance. So Tony Galippi and Stephen Pear, they came to New York. They told me all about Bitcoin. And I bought my first Bitcoins at $11. Unfortunately, as a musician, this was not as lucrative as it sounds. There were not a lot of extra dollars to invest. But, you know, when I really understood how it could impact the world, I got very excited. I wrote a Bitcoin jingle that I debuted at the first Latin American Bitcoin conference. You know, Latin America, of course, had a huge, I don't know, like I always say that that's where the heart beats, the heart of Bitcoin beats in Latin America, because everybody there is just really using it. They've taken to it. The community down there is really awesome. And ever since then, you know, I've just been kind of trying to merge the idea of Bitcoin and sound money, and also helping artists get a financial education, because, you know, I made TatianaCoin, which is the first artist cryptocurrency. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, NFTs, blah, 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 and they all hate it. But for me, really what it was is a way to kind of connect with my fans. And also, if artists can evangelize Bitcoin, which was my goal, right? They can do a few different things. Number one, they can be they can release themselves from the chains of the Federal Reserve System, right? The regular banking system isn't helping anybody. And I made money from Bitcoin, not from working, you know, a day job, right? And a lot of artists, when they want to record, that's what they really need. So I always say, you know, you can play around with these different kinds of tokens and stuff, but like that is a game. That is something where you can help sculpt the future. But you know, sound money is a lot more important to me. Like I said, like, you know, my background, I have a lot of friends who are economists. I even went on a Contra Krugman cruise. I sang several years in a row. So we were kind of making fun of Paul Krugman. So I really think that Bitcoin is like the most critical thing that everybody is working on right now. And I'm happy to be, you know, a part of it for a very long time, and seeing all the different iterations, and seeing some things come back full circle.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to talk to you about TatianaCoin, because I'm very curious about the kind of the journey that you had with that. But you said that when you discovered the Federal Reserve, you kind of started to care about this kind of stuff. How did you discover that? Was that just through talking to friends, or like, obviously being an American, I'm sure you know the Fed existed, but when did it actually become clear to you what it was, and what did that mean?
Actually, I would say that 95% of people, let's say 10 years ago or 12 years ago, didn't know anything that the Federal Reserve even existed. The average person isn't aware of that at all. For me, I think it was really not sort of out of nowhere. It really was a result of a lifelong pursuit of the truth, right? You know, reading something like Atlas Shrugged, right, had a big impact on me, reading different kinds of things that would lead me to sort of libertarian thought. But really, it was Ron Paul. I mean, Ron Paul is a really great advocate for liberty in general. Anti-war is a really strong value for me, right? Like, who wants war? It's a super terrible thing that we should just eliminate off the gate. Like, we can all agree, war, thumbs down. And yet we haven't been able to do that. So why is that? And so, so those things kind of melded together for me. I saw a film called America, Freedom to Fascism, and another one called Fiat Empire. There was also The Money Masters by Bill Still, which is a little bit older. And just learning about the history of money, I mean, it becomes really apparent who the enemy is and how you actually fight back. People have a lot of disagreements around politics, and I surely participate in that, right? But at the end of the day, that's not really important if you know, like both sides are winning with the way that they're playing around with the money, and we're just the people that are the losers funding it. So yeah, I
And
wanted artists
I
to get
think you're
into
right.
that.
I think this is something that people very much don't understand, that it's just a uni party and they're both supporting very similar policies, and it's kind of, you know, there's very marginal differences in what they're actually putting forward and not. So that's fascinating. So how did you get into music? Is this like something that you were just born loving and you always wanted to do? Like, what was that journey like?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, some people can say, "Oh, I don't know what I want to do with my life." I always knew. Although I do think that it's a little bit challenging, you know, seeing the way that I perceived what music was growing up, and, you know, what it meant to be a star or to do music, and then seeing how, you know, you have MP3s kind of changing what that landscape looked like. You have the controlling record labels. You have the, ever dwindling opportunities to actually cut through. You know, a lot of people think that the indie world is so wonderful, but really it just leaves you with a lot of work to do and not enough time to do what you really like to do, which is art. So, and it remains very competitive,
You
which
said
I
you
which I
said that
learned.
you've always sorry to interrupt, but you said that you've always known that you wanted to be a musician. So do you remember like when you were little, were you already performing and singing, or because I know that you're classically trained, so you did go to music school, you have formally studied music, but before that, like what was your exposure?
I mean, literally, since I could try out for choir, I was in choir. From the minute I could be in the plays, I was in the plays. So yeah, I mean, I was chomping at the bit.
And then when you went to get
Yeah.
classical training, what was your thinking? Like, where did you think your career was going to go? What was the plan, I guess? Were you like, I'm going to be a country singer, I'm going to be a classical musician and play in an orchestra? Like, what was that road like?
You know, I think it's very hard to tell where a person wants to go when they go to music school, right? Because I think that I just wanted to get out of my house, if I'm being honest. You know, I really liked music and I wanted to perform and I wanted to have a job, right? And so thought, okay, music business, that makes sense. And then, you know, I started working at a lot of different recording studios just because I wanted free studio time. I figured it was the least corporate and annoying of the music businesses. And it was the most immersed in the studio environment. So, but I think that like, you know, the perception of what makes a successful artist then and now is quite different. And I think that music schools, you know, Berklee College of Music, one of the best music schools in the country, easily. But nonetheless, I feel like sometimes they offer these false hopes, and that's how these kind of convergences of Bitcoin and music found themselves together, right? Because I had been working at recording studios for many years before I started doing Ron Paul stuff and subsequently Bitcoin stuff, right? And I had recognized like a lot of the inherent problems within the industry and just living it, right? Okay, I want to be a singer-songwriter. Well, guess what? You better learn how to waitress, sister, because music doesn't pay the bills, right? Okay, maybe if you sing cover songs, but I mean, who wants to sing cover songs, right? You want to do your own music because your guts has to be laid out and stuff like that. So, you know, I think that like what even like what you can sell before, right? You could sell CDs and things like that before, but now I put out a record, right? And let's say it costs $30,000 to produce a record properly. And that's without much of a marketing budget, if any, but let's just say that's what it costs. Maybe you could get it done for a little bit more, a little bit less, but this is an example I use a lot of times when talking about this. It's like if I get 1 million plays on Spotify, I only get $1,000 for that. So how many hours of my time did it take to get to that 1 million plays? And so, okay, let's say I make it there. Great. Now what? Okay, so now I spend another 150 hours and then I get another $1,000. And then the next month, like I don't understand what artists are supposed to do in order to make it a long-term career. And what I think we've seen a lot of is people adopting these Patreon type models. And I'm not sure that that's exactly where we're going to end up landing, because I also find that sort of annoying. I've spoken to a lot of different artists, and then we have this kind of pressure. Oh, well, now you have to tell people what you cooked today. And oh, now you have to tell them about how you made the song. And some of those things you want to share, like how you made the song, that's cool. But sometimes, you know, we're artists, we're moody. I don't want to take pictures of myself all the time. I don't want to tell everybody what I'm doing all the time, but I have all this pressure and I have to do it. And so all of these things are kind of morphing. Before, you just had to, you know, sell some records, go on tour, like people throw their underwear at you. And then, you know, you go home and you like recover from your drug addiction. Very understood kind of process. Now you don't even get to do any of those things. And like, if I wanted to, let's say I wanted to go on tour with a famous country artist, right? As an independent artist, or just as a regular artist that's signed, I would have to pay 100 grand to go on tour with them. So to support the tour. So
Wait, hang
like,
on a
why would I
second.
have
What? So
100?
the support acts actually pay the artist to go on tour with them?
That happens a lot of the times. Yeah. And look, once in a while,
I had no
you
idea.
know, if you know somebody, or if you're sleeping with somebody, like you can get around these things. But as a person who has not taken that route, it's been very challenging, right? And so I continue to find album after album, conversation after conversation with different artists, with which I may perceive as more successful than me or less successful. I actually realize none of us are very successful by normal people standards, right? Like, and that's why I think things like, artist coins are kind of viable, because I think that I don't want to have the next generation of artists wasting their time standing in front of Instagram wondering if their lips are big enough or if their hair is teased properly in order to make a good song. Like, I don't think that that begets good art, and I don't think that begets a healthy population, right? So if artists want to be themselves, how do we actually support them without just begging our fans to give us donations, right? Because that's also super
So
annoying. But
the
people
normal,
don't
like,
want to pay for music.
so if you look at like a successful artist who makes a lot of money, then like what is generally their primary source of income? Is it touring, or is it like the downloads on streaming services, or something else completely?
Um, well, it depends. To be fair, I would probably make more than, let's say, a signed artist that had somebody else's song, right? Because I write all my own music, so I own all my rights. So I'd probably get a little bit more than the average person. I think a lot of artists expect to make it off of touring. And then I think that there's other businesses that they can build off of it. You know what I mean? Let's say somebody like Rihanna, right? She probably makes more money off of her makeup than she makes off of her touring or any of her music stuff. But the problem is that if you want to become Rihanna, like, say goodbye to your soul. I'm sure that there's a few artists out there that haven't sold their souls, but as we've seen with Diddy and all this other nonsense that's coming out, it's a dirty business, right? And yeah, it's great to be Rihanna, but I would like everybody to just be a person that has 100 grand a year adjusted for inflation, where they can, have a semi-normal life and maybe afford a vacation and have a car, but not the best car, but something that they can kind of build from. And then I think that that would really make a lot better art than this idolization of this kind of unrealistic vision of what artists should be. Like, when I was a little girl, I used to look up to Fiona Apple or Tori Amos or I don't know, Sheryl Crow. There were these great female artists that you could look up to, even like Janis Joplin, whatever. She was a degenerate, but she was cool. And now who do they have to look up to? The most wholesome of all the artists is Taylor Swift, who some might say
Wholesome.
is starting to look like a demon. Like she's going a little hard with this Satan stuff. So
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just
I mean,
saying,
I
like,
don't even know that she's wholesome. I
I
mean,
want
she
to bring
changes
back
like
real art.
boyfriends, like most people change their underwear. I mean, I'm like, I actually couldn't even name you a single song of hers, but I saw a clip of a video of hers on Twitter, and it made me laugh my ass off because she's like the worst dancer in the world, and she was prancing along this video, and the person had posted it, and they said, "I don't understand how she's so popular." And I watched it, and I was like, I kind of tend to agree. I mean, I don't want to be mean because, like, look, I mean, she's made a great success, and actually, my mum, to my disgust, the other day called me up and she went, "Everyone's criticizing Taylor Swift, and I've just downloaded her album and I think it's great." And I was like, "Oh, I might have to, am I adopted? Can I be adopted?"
Ah. Well, I don't even feel like she's the worst example, right? To me, something like Cardi B and a WAP, or that other song with her farting or whatever. I mean, this to me is, I don't know if it's just put out there to make me depressed. I think it has to be. And then people are like, I don't understand why I'm on antidepressants. I don't know, listen to the music. It would make me want to kill myself too. So I think that we've got some other forces that are sculpting what people are ingesting, and
Well,
I
it
just
is.
don't
Yeah, I tend to agree. Actually, it is quite interesting when you look at the music industry that it's often not particularly talented people that seem to become successful. Like, to your point about Rihanna, again, I couldn't name you a single song. Oh, actually, one song I could name is because all the kids used to sing at the Umbrella one, which I was just like, this is the most annoying thing ever. But there was I watched a video clip of her once on YouTube because I was like, I wonder what the big deal is about Rihanna. Let me go and see her music. And she was performing at the MGM. And she starts singing, and apart from the fact that her voice was not that great, as she sat on this chair, and then all of a sudden she just opened her legs in this like really awkward way, and it looked like this really bad strip show. And I just couldn't stop laughing. I was like, did somebody actually go and pay her to go and perform at MGM to do, like, this is so bad. It's not even funny. And I think she's obviously very comfortable in front of the camera because I've seen clips of her since where she's kind of, talking and then performing and whatever. But she's definitely not the best performer I've seen live by like a long, long shot. And I
No,
would
she's
say,
known for it. She's known for being a bad performer. Like she just got paid $8 million and everybody was making fun of her and other people like, but that's her thing. She's just known for. I'm like, oh, what a great thing to be known for. Give the girl another million.
Your dog's like, I agree.
Yeah. I guess I have an invader coming in. Hold on, let me close my door. I'm not expecting anyone. I hope it isn't a murderer. Oh
Okay,
no,
so do I.
no murderers, so that's good. Safe and sound. By
Safe
the
and
way, I'm
sound.
representing BitGive today, now unused crypto charity. So
Oh, BitGive.
did you ever hear of BitGive? Yeah, they were really cool. My friend Connie Galuppi is the first Bitcoin 501c3 charity in the world, actually.
Oh,
So
I do
yeah,
remember. Are
we
they
had,
not active anymore?
I think that she sold it, or a guy acquired, or I don't know how you would say it when it's a charity thing, but yeah, and I think somebody else is taking over her work. So I just
Okay.
thought like it would be fun. I was wearing it around the house and I was like, I'm gonna rock this today. Why not?
Hilarious. Okay, so we've trashed Taylor Swift and we've trashed Rihanna. Why not?
Yeah.
So I guess, well, that brings me to another question then, is like, what do you think makes good music and what makes a good performer?
Sincerity. So people, I've been hearing this around a lot, and I guess like one of the things that resonates, that has the most power in the world, like what emotion or like what thing it is that registers the most, it gets like the highest frequency for resonance, I guess. And a lot of people will say love, but it's actually authenticity. And I would agree with that. I think that a lot of the world around us is really, really fake, and it's to a point where you almost feel like everybody believes it, but there's that little underpinning that makes me think that actually they don't.
Mm,
So I think that people are really seeking that kind of something true, because we've been fed a diet of, McDonald's and trash TV for decades now, right? And our brains and our souls have been somewhat rotted. But, I have hope. Look, you take a kid, right? You take a 10-year-old. And yeah, maybe they listen to trashy music, but if you play them, a Doors record or Led Zeppelin or some kind of cool old thing like Prince, they're gonna like it. And so music has that kind of timeless quality, no matter how much they try and shove the current stuff down our faces. Yeah, okay, maybe we buy it for a little while, but it doesn't have that timeless quality. And so um it's interesting to see like AI taking over. I used some AI on my album, my fourth record I just put out called Love Songs for Idiots. And so we did some AI art with it, right? And I thought a lot about, what AI is going to do to art in the future. And I'm not loving it for music, I'm not going to lie. But one of the things that I do think that it could do is it can make things a little bit more shorthand. So if I were to be creating a song on demand for you, instead of me spending 3 hours writing something and then sending it to you and you're like, this is completely wrong, I can play around with an AI, get into the general direction. So it's kind of like a communication tool.
mhm.
So I think that that's pretty neat. But like, I also worry, God, these people, they have no taste. Are they just gonna like AI music all the time? Because they can't tell, I'm sorry, but a lot of people, I make mistakes on stage all the time. And this may actually be my authenticity speaking through. But people, they don't know the difference. So I do worry. But I think that, going forward, more instruments and more from the heart, and less like Instagram culture being forced into like a musical form. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it
I'm
is
really ragging.
interesting. No, I mean, it's interesting with artists because, like, for example, I absolutely love Lana Del Rey's music. Like, I absolutely love it. There's some of her songs that for me are like just total anthems, and I think they're awesome. And then I've never seen her live, and I always wanted to. And somebody said to me, oh, apparently she's really bad live. And I thought she can't be that bad. And then I watched a few videos on YouTube and I was like, oh my God. And I was just like, this is like night and day between like what you hear in the studio version and what she's like live. I've seen Pink live. I used to love Pink. I think since she started taking payment for promoting the Clot Shot, her and I have parted ways. I'm just like, you've turned into an absolute corporate shill of an asshole. But she was amazing live. I've seen her 5 times and she is incredible. And she does, like, she sings live. Her voice is incredible. Her performance is great. Like, her stage presence is great. Um, Yeah, so there's definitely a difference in that. And I don't know whether some people are just very talented at writing and they can record a great song in a studio, but then when they get on stage, they're a bit meh. Like some people are just not natural performers.
Well, like I would say that somebody like Lana Del Rey or a lot of more kind of pop music, I mean, at the end of the day, they're singing a couple lines and they're singing it in a whisper voice, right? Like, which live doesn't have that much power, right? But if you make little adjustments and you tweak it and you've got the whole entire track that is providing that environment for that vocal to kind of sit in it properly, I think you kind of lose something. The same thing with rap music. Like, I like some hip hop tracks, but it's really hard to do that live. The way that they compensate for it is they'll get, a live drummer and like a live band, and then it all of a sudden it kind of has some action. I'd be curious to see how many songs she herself writes. Like, I don't know her work very well, but that's the other thing that happens with these artists is, if you look at a Beyonce song, it's not like Beyonce wrote it. You've got 19 different producers on the track, and it's the same thing like for a lot of pop stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I think that some people are better live, some people are better in the studio. If you can enjoy it, like the recordings, enjoy the recordings, we'll probably skip the live performances. I don't know. I
Yeah.
think live stuff is best when it's acoustic music. I don't ever see electronic music that's very good that's live. But I mean, I live in Miami and I don't really like dance music in general, so I struggle with that already to begin with.
Yeah, the Miami scene's a bit funny. It's one of those places where it's a bit more nightclubby, I feel like, I would have felt like your soul home would be more like Nashville or something.
I think a lot about going there, but the reality is that I love the ocean. And Miami, I think, is a really big Bitcoin city. I created this trailer and like a pilot episode. I still don't know what to do with it because they made it right at the end of the bull market last year, and I called it Bitcoin City, all about Miami, because I do think that it's just such a hub of all the activity. um and also it's kind of a fun place to be in general. I love also how accessible the art is here. In New York it's just so snooty and kind of, I don't
Yeah.
know, it's just like a lame attitude. But Miami is a little bit more loose and a little bit more fun and experimental, so I think it's just naturally more creative of a space.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nashville is on my mind.
So tell me about TatianaCoin then, because so from what you're sort of like to sort of summarize, I guess your music journey, you kind of had your journey, realized it was hard to make money. Typically, you make more money if you actually write your own songs, assuming they're successful. Streaming doesn't pay particularly well, even if you get a ton of downloads. Live performance pays reasonably well, but it's obviously a huge lift to do that on a consistent basis. So, in the fiat system, obviously, money loses its value. But where did you see Tatiana Coin fitting into this? And what is the issue really with artists not having direct compensation? Like, how is Tatiana Coin going to solve that in your mind?
Well, there's a lot of different things. I think a lot of people like to focus on direct compensation. I think that the compensation part kind of skips the more important part, which is like exposure, right? So I have political music, right? Governments don't love that. They are in touch with people in Hollywood, right? So they're not going to be knocking on my door saying, "Hey, Tatiana, we'd love to hear the next anti-war song that worked out so well for John Lennon." Like, they're not into that. So early on, I just recognized that, the music industry had a really distinct political flavor and it wasn't mine. I made accounts off of that do-it-yourself kind of mentality. So I did it on Friendster, I did it on MySpace, I did it on Facebook, I did it on YouTube, I did it on Twitter. I did it on all these places. But as you know, some of them kind of became less popular. And so let's say I had 7 or 8,000 fans on MySpace. Well, now MySpace doesn't exist. How do I keep in touch with those fans? When I made an ad on Facebook, because I was doing the Ron Paul stuff, and I figured, okay, I have very, very little money, if any, but let's say I could put aside $50 a week for ads. Ooh, okay. Well, I'll pay 20 cents to get a click, but then I could sell them my music for the rest of my life. Whoop-dee. And then I noticed that that's actually not how it worked at all. you paid for the first click and that was just the beginning. Now they've got you like hooked, right? Because now you've got the likes and they're all banked on your stupid little Facebook page, but you can't actually reach your fans. And you're basically stuck playing games with the algorithms, which even if I wasn't political, are still impossible to figure out, right?
Mm.
So as Bitcoin, you know, and I also worked at a recording studio. And what I found that was frustrating in the recording studio side was that only lame artists were getting funded. So it was a lot of crappy hip hop music. And then artists that I thought were really good couldn't even afford to go into the studio. And I didn't really have
Do
as
you,
much
do you
control over
think
the studio.
do you think that that's a lack of sophistication on the listener side? Like the reason I asked that is my husband's really into Tool and he always tells me about how great Tool's music is. And I listen to Tool and I'm like, this just feels very off to me. Like it doesn't have a and he's like, well, that's exactly it. It's not predictable, is it? And I'm just like, sounds a bit shit, I'll be honest.
Well, I mean,
But
I think that that Tool is an acquired taste, but like you can't like take away from their musicianship. So I don't know. But
but I think
now I
as
think I'm a
somebody
little
who
confused.
but I think as somebody who's a musician themselves and understands the complexity, I feel like you can appreciate that. But for somebody that is not a musician, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, this just sounds a bit like it's not very
No, I think
symphonic.
people are brainwashed idiots. No, I think most people they don't know anything. I'm sorry, but like the reality is that people don't have time to develop a really good musical taste. Most people are just going to go along with what they're fed, right? And so for a long time, we had really good things. They were feeding us Michael Jackson. They were feeding us Madonna. Slightly questionable morals, but whatever. Let's let it slide. Michael too, for that matter. But you know what I mean? Like we were getting actually good music for a while, right? And then all of a sudden, I think that well, actually, you can look at what Ice Cube did. He did an interview and he even talked about it, how the record labels were like, yeah, we've got money inside of prisons. And we're gonna try and send more people to prison. What kind of music will make them go to prison? And so now they're funding it and then they're taking it from all different sides. And I don't think that music is by accident, right? You've got a bunch of revolutions that are starting because of the music in the 60s and 70s, right? If I were in charge, I wouldn't really like that, right? So you've got like this kind of Operation Paperclip where they take all those Nazis from Germany and they bring them to the US and they're all working on like, programming people's brains. And, you've got Bernays with his like propaganda stuff, right? Like they're going to just skip the music world with that? Absolutely not. That's a great place to implant ideas into the populace. So I would say that yeah, music is purposely bad and people will eat it because they don't know any better. It's like I
It's
would if
like
I
it's
was
like
starting.
McDonald's. It's simple, it's easy to digest, and
Exactly right.
therefore you can kind of use it for programming a bit better. Yeah, that makes sense. Whereas something that's more sophisticated requires a bit of effort to kind of
But I wouldn't
appreciate.
but I wouldn't even go so far as to calling it a sophisticated type of music. It's just a matter of how many hours there are in the day and what you are being fed during that time, right? Like if it's good enough, you're not going to go searching around. And is there better music that's equally accessible that anybody would like? Of course. There's so much. But why would they want that out there? Because they don't. They want artists that they can control. They could say, "Oh, we want you to sing about this specific thing. We've got this agenda. We don't have this agenda. We're just bad people." Or we just want to make money and maybe it's easier to sell artists like I mean, God, Britney Spears, what a freaking horror show. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
I
They take
know.
kids from Disney World, right? They exploit the hell out of them, but oh man, she made them a lot of money. So I just don't think that it's that people have bad taste, because like I said, you play something good for these kids, they will know what it is. They don't need to have, like, if you don't take away the filter, the problem is that people aren't listening to good stuff, just like we're not getting good movies like we used to get good movies. I mean, the movies are trash now too, because it's just a propaganda whole like annoying thing versus it just being art and genuine. And that's where we come back to the
I've got
genuine.
to be honest, actually. I mean, the movies thing is just, it's insane how bad it is. I mean, I'm like, how many remakes of remakes can you get? And when they keep doing these like Ghostbusters with women in it, Ocean's 11 with women in it, and I'm like, this is actually like so bad. It's ridiculous. Like it's just
It's
beyond.
embarrassing.
But do you know what? This is one of the things about AI that I kind of wonder whether, for example, there's been a lot of hoo-ha about in Hollywood, about the stars saying that they don't want their image to be used and to have to sign their rights away for the rest of their life. And I get it, fine. But I'm like, if you're a filmmaker and you don't have millions and millions and a budget, but you're a great storyteller. Now you can scale that and you can make really realistic, beautiful looking movies with zero budget. And to me, I'm like, well, this is actually going to improve the movie industry because now it's not gate kept by Hollywood. And, all of the really talented storytellers have got the resources to produce something that's watchable. So I'm actually really excited by that.
Yeah, I think that that is really the other side of the coin, and I think that the movie example is quite easy. I have a friend who's working on a secret project around that, and you've really nailed it. It's that you actually will be able to spin up different ideas a lot more easily, and it kind of levels the playing field. And that's going to shake some things up in the meantime. And I don't think it's all going to be roses and cheesecake, but I do not think that it has to be as doom and gloom as people imagine it to be. Although
Would
I
that
still don't want them for music.
Well, but would that help with videos? Because you could basically just have your image on your AI and your sound and everything, and then when you produce a new song, you just upload it and it produces a video of you performing the song without you having to go in a studio and record it or on set or whatever. Um, I don't
Well,
know.
that is, so I feel like that would be not very, like, I even wanted to do an AI video. We tried to, but the tech wasn't quite there yet when we were trying it out. This was like a couple of years ago. And yeah, I mean, you nail it, right? Because I need music videos, and making music videos as an artist is always just a gigantic expense. I don't have a lot of music videos because I can't afford them. They're just too much. But is it going to be that artistic if it's just generated by AI? Like, kind of seems like it's going to be wonky and lame at the same time, and maybe soulless. I mean, I don't know. I didn't have a lot of MTV growing up, but I just remember, like, think about like November Rain. November Rain's not going to be made by an AI. Come on, you need the passion and the like something of it. But if you've got nothing, it's better than nothing, right? And like, you got to kind of like, I don't know. Art is such a weirdly subjective thing, and also the exchange of money for art is also frustrating, because it
Well,
doesn't really, it doesn't make sense in the real world. Like, other things are priced out. Like, I'm a really good doctor, people are going to pay me. I'm a really good artist, could be making millions, could be making zero, could be a trash man. You know what I mean? Literally, like the
yeah.
best artists are not always necessarily the most appreciated. So like, how do you fix that?
Well,
I'm not really sure.
I think they're they're two very different skill sets, being an artist and being a business person. And usually people who are
Mhm.
very good at art, excuse me, are not typically good at business. And so it's hard for them to even know how to navigate that and how to kind of manage that process. So I'm curious then what the journey has been, because you started off doing TatianaCoin. Do you still do that? And is that effective for building a relationship with your fans, or have you looked at other means of doing that now?
So the way that we did TatianaCoin was, it was the very first coin, right? Nobody in Bitcoin even understood it. There wasn't even an Ethereum, right? Like, it was just on Counterparty, which is built on Bitcoin, which is actually, kind of funny because of the whole ordinals runes thing. Being like, we're the first guys on Bitcoin. It's like, I don't know. Anyway, so when we built it, we raised some money, and what I did with the money was I recorded my third album called Keep the Faith, which I actually have artwork by Ross Ulbricht on the cover. So he drew a picture of like, for my birthday, he made a drawing of me by hand in prison, and I used that as the album cover, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to show, this is why artists need an artist coin, because we need to be supported by our community so we could do wild stuff like this. Because if I had a record label, they're not going to let me do something like this. They're going to say, oh, that guy, he's bad. Or, we love the drug industry, or whatever weirdo stuff they're coming up with, right? They're going to control what I'm saying. So when I funded, the first album with Artist Coin, blah, 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 I wanted it to be sort of a statement as to why. And then we made a company called Tokenly. So it was a Web3 company before they called it Web3, and we just did a ton of different experiments. So I made a Tatiana Moroz token, I made some album tokens, and we built a whole infrastructure. But really what ended up happening was we were too early. And what a crappy lesson that is as an artist, because, as an artist, you're so idealistic and you're like, I'm the first, and this is going to change everything, and I'm going to make the world better. And really, it's just actually extremely difficult to get investment into a new idea like that. And what I've seen over the decades since I launched it is that I don't really see a lot of products that are there yet, right? Like, I don't see anything that I could use. I just put out a new album, Love Songs for Idiots, and no idiots can even get it. because, you know, there's no like Web3 integration. So I still have some Tatiana coins, and I have some kind of, you know, fun integrations with my fans that I have coming up. But I think it's really a matter of having to build some of that, some of those tools myself. And right now I'm also seeking ways where there can be an interoperability, right? Like I'm hanging out with my counterparty crew, and there's this interest in bringing back counterparty and getting more development on counterparty. And okay, that's cool. And I really like that, because I always thought counterparty had a lot of heart. But I also think that, you know, these blockchain wars between all these other things that are not Bitcoin, everybody's kind of fighting and being like nasty about it. But and I think that there's a lot of scams, but I think that no one can really tell where those tokens are going to make the most sense. Like, I think that there is a future where there's going to be tokens, or whatever you want to call it, whatever they call it now, like coins, blah, blah, blah. They always have some stupid new name for it, and I'm supposed to pay attention. But, you know, like there's going to be that, but like, what chain is that going to be on? I think it's too early to know. So what I want to see is things that are built like with an interoperable way, where, okay, you like Solana, bring your Solana token, have it hang out with my Tatiana coin, have it hang out with this Ethereum person. And then the fans can have more options and not necessarily have to subscribe to whether or not this protocol is going to work. Look, Counterparty is super cool. It's built on Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. But one of the challenges was I couldn't transact on it because the cost of the transaction fee was higher than the assigned value of the coin, right? So I didn't know that was going to happen. I wasn't pumping and dumping. People asked me to pump and dump, and I said, no, I wanted to be honest. And I would have made a lot more money and probably made a lot more art, but that wasn't the point of it. So I think that it's important to give people the space to have the experimentation, because we don't know, and even the best intentions can be met with unforeseen problems. And so if there's a spirit of kind of encouraging each other and learning from each other, I think that we can get there faster, because artists still need this, right? Like, artists still can't pay the bills. So come on, guys, let's
Yeah.
make it happen.
Somebody said to me yesterday, and I don't know if this is going too down the conspiracy rabbit hole, but they were saying they think a lot of this argument that's going on in the Bitcoin community is actually artificial, like it's people intentionally like stimulating it to distract from bigger issues. And
Possibly.
yeah, and I mean, I do think a lot of this stuff, like people get so het up about ordinals, and I find it funny because I personally don't think that they have any value. Like, I don't think that, you know, ordering the Satoshis and saying that this thing is assigned to it makes any sense as a system. I get the rationale behind it. I just don't think that people have to buy into it and they have to agree to it. It's not like an enforceable contract, like legal contract. So it's kind of nonsense in some ways. But I'm also like, Bitcoin is a commons, and you either agree that it's a commons and that nobody controls it individually and everyone can use it how they want, or you don't. Like, you can't have it both ways. So you can say that you're not interested in ordinals, but I think to sort of rage about the fact that other people want to use the chain that way, I think is nonsense. To the point about the tokens, I think with the tokens, to me, it's more really, it sounds like about owning the fruits of your own labor in the almost like you would a subscription. So it's basically like a subscription to Tatiana's artistic work that gets you certain rights and privileges. I don't see why
Yeah.
that has to be on Bitcoin. Like, you know,
Because what I wanted to do is well, no, it doesn't need to
interoperable.
be on Bitcoin. It could be on Ethereum or whatever. No, what I wanted was I wanted the network. I
Mm,
wanted somebody that, like, if I did it, look, I can have that network of people, but if I do it on Facebook, or if I do it on Instagram, or if I do it on Twitter, they own that network. If I have a coin connection to people,
mm.
who's going to be able to step in between that? Nobody, right? Like, maybe they don't like my coin, they could sell it, but otherwise, maybe they don't use the wallet. But otherwise, I think of it a little bit more
Oh,
like an
you
email.
mean because if it was sitting on the Bitcoin network, it would be interoperable with other services on there?
No, I mean, like, I have a permanent connection with that person. Like, I know their wallet address and I can send them stuff. So I think of it as a marketing channel,
Right.
if
That's
that helps.
interesting. Yeah.
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 So I
That makes
kind
a
of
lot of
like,
sense.
I'm just really trying to create a fan club, and like, everything that I built in my career. And look, I am not a lazy person, and I went to a good school and I applied myself. Like, I maybe not apply myself that much in school, but I'm just saying I applied myself to like the pursuit of music, and it's just as eternally difficult. And the most frustrating part is that I've built this value for other companies. If
Mm.
I had been building it with TatianaCoin as something that the average person could participate with from the jump, I would have 5, 10, 20 times as many fans as I do right now. But because I don't have that control, I just don't see how I don't know, like it's an ongoing thought process for me, because it's not just about me and like what I can achieve as an artist, but what can other people achieve as artists. And also seeing like people's dreams get crushed at music school. Like, I don't know, the music industry just sucks. I think a lot about how to make it less horrible, and how to foster growth. And I think really it's just like about having something sustainable that you can build. And this is where like it kind of comes full circle, right? Bitcoin to me taught me a lot about entrepreneurship, which I think also relates to music, right? Artists need to learn about entrepreneurship. They
They
need to know
do.
about money. And money is super important. If they don't have money, they could just sit around like smoking their dreams away with the peace pipe. But like, you need cash in order to make that musical career happen. You need cash in order to make anything happen, really. And the fantasy that everybody's just going to be the next Beyonce is just, it's nonsense. It's a fantasy, and people need like more realistic opportunities, I think.
Yeah, and I think to your earlier point as well about Beyonce again, I'm trashing all these artists that I'm sure everybody loves, but like I
I don't
watched.
even hate Beyonce. Like, maybe she's a witch. I mean, remains to be seen. Her and Jay-Z kind of
Well,
sketch.
I don't know. I mean, I watched a concert of hers online because, again, I was curious. I was like, oh, I wonder what the big deal is about Beyonce. And again, I was just like a little bit unimpressed by it. I just didn't think it was that amazing, to be honest. And I do think that what you're saying has a lot of truth in it. In that, like, for example, there's an Italian singer called Elisa, and she actually does sing in English, so her work is translatable to the kind of Anglo-Saxon market, if you like. And she's one of the best performers I've ever seen live. She was so amazing and she was so good. She played in this small town in Italy. She was so good. She was just performing in the town square that literally, like, the crowd would not let her leave. And in the end, she was sat on the drum kits that her crew had packed up, just singing a cappella because, like, everyone was just, constantly screaming for her to come back on stage. I mean, that's how good she was. And she's almost unheard of outside of Italy, almost. I mean, she's done some stuff with some sort of well-known artists, but she's not known at all. And it really fascinates me because it really speaks to the fact that, there's definitely a machine that decides who's going to be big and who's not. And it's not on the basis of talent, for sure, or at least not solely on the basis of talent. So it's a shame because you wonder like how much amazing work we're actually missing out on, that we just don't get to see because the marketing, whatever push is not behind it.
Yeah, I feel like we're actually being robbed. Like I get genuinely angry and really deeply sad because, growing up, the radio, as limited as it was, it really provided, this amazing soundtrack to my life. And now my soundtrack is really bad.
Like
So I just don't play music anymore. Yeah, like and that's the thing. Like, I want music to be a part of my life, but they've kind of stolen it, and unless you go on this deep search, it's really hard to find that, right? I mean, luckily music is, strong, and it pulses through all of our hearts and it finds its way, right? Um, but nonetheless, I would like it to be a little bit easier to have a sustainable career. That's like the bottom line, like no more waitressing, more music, less waitressing.
Yeah, is there an opportunity for like Bitcoiners who are artists to get together and co-create this system that you're sort of envisioning? I'm just wondering like whether there are some that, if everybody gets together and is like, how can we fix this for ourselves, that you guys might be able to create something together?
Well, there's a few challenges with that. Number one, artists are disorganized, drug addict, egomaniacs. So, like, getting them all to do something is just very, very lovely as an idea, but like actually getting them to do it is like, maybe not going to work. I do think that the Counterparty crew is super inspiring, like not just chill Counterparty, but I'm pretty excited about what's happening there just because I went to the historical NFT fest a couple of years ago that was put on by Dada, which is like a group. And so I just thought it was so cool because everybody's spirit was really in the right place. But even within that community, there's such a difference of opinion as to like what's the right thing to do. So I think, we just have to kind of let everybody take their own role and try and be respectful while trying to get there, right? Because I think, like, I don't know, just more broadly, I think that the vitriol online is really intense lately, and everybody's just so nasty to one another. And
I think people are
that
super
applies
stressed,
to
to be
me.
honest. I think people are super stressed and they're
Yeah.
just like it's coming out. But also I think to your earlier point, it's the algorithms that feed that. I mean, I use
Mhm.
Substack a lot and there's almost none of that on Substack. It's just like super chill, very productive, loads of really nice content. It's pretty amazing actually. Um
Yeah.
if people want to get involved in the counterparty crew, then like how would they do that? Can they do that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they're going to be doing. Like, I'll be in Lisbon, May 28th. And so we're having this kind of informal, formal, I don't know, like counterparty. I call it a summit. Nobody else is calling it that. So I can't officially call it that, but I don't know. I'll be performing. It'll be a side event during the non-fungible conference. And so I think people are really like going to be I think it's an opportunity for voices to be heard. I think that there's some moves in terms of people taking on a leadership role because I think that decentralization has its place. And when trying to get a project off the ground, decentralization can be a real hindrance, especially when it comes to like marketing. Like, I think that's where Counterparty really failed. We didn't have marketing. We weren't like, Ethereum with our unicorns or whatever. And I think that was a loss. So yeah, people can go to Lisbon and they can meet me there at the end of May. I might even do something here in Miami. But more broadly, I'm always just doing events around freedom and Bitcoin and sometimes some cool projects that I come across. And also just like relationship stuff. I'm going to start doing some spaces. If you want to join, actually, we're
I'd
doing
love
spaces.
to.
Yeah, I think that's like the other place where I find myself drawn, besides, trying to save the world with, one coin at a time. I think that like love is sort of lost a little bit. So I think I had this podcast called Proof of Love, and it was about, tech people improving their emotional intelligence. And so I think it'll work really nicely as a spaces. So I feel like that might be kind of fulfilling too.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some amazing spaces. I have a friend who's she's based in El Salvador, but she's an educator and she's got like an armful of degrees. I don't even know how many she's got. It's ridiculous. But she's a home tutor and she's writing a book called Seashells to Satoshi. But she has an encyclopedic knowledge of history and like ancient Greek history. And so she's doing these amazing Twitter spaces now where she's just basically teaching people about this stuff online, which is phenomenal. So yeah, you should do like live. Can you do a Twitter spaces where you just sing live? I don't know, requests or what's it called again when you like make shit up on the fly? Is it jamming or whatever when you just
Oh, you're like, what do when you like make stuff up and stuff? Yeah, no, I've actually been thinking about doing some more recordings. And so I've just been like setting up my house for 4,000 years. And it's finally sort of close to being done. And now I'm going on tour. So I do think I'll have to be doing some more live performances along the way just for fun. And
But what I
I mean,
mean is it'd be great to do
for
that
you.
on Twitter Spaces. Like if you were just playing and then somebody else comes in and jams with you, that would be a really cool thing. If like there's three or
Well,
four musicians or whatever doing that live and we can all just come in and listen and pretend like we're at the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville.
Well, there's a lot of I like that that location. There's a lot of cool tech being built in order to make that happen, but the problem with trying to do music remotely is there's lag inherently, and music is so important that the timing is exactly right where it needs to be. So that's the challenge there. But maybe doing some performances live on Spaces alone would be easy enough to do. So
That would
I'll
be
look into.
fun. Yeah, do that.
So
Oh my
I
God, that'd
mean,
be
people
so
like
cool.
that kind of stuff. Yeah, for sure. And then, otherwise people can come see me live. Maybe you need to come to Miami too.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you coming to Nashville? Are you going to be there?
I have not decided yet. There is a chance, and then the bigger chances is that it's hot. I love Miami so much, and when I travel, I just don't want to go anywhere. But I do think that that'll be a fun event. So we'll see. I might see you there.
Yeah, come. That would be really fun, actually, because we're planning a few different things. You could come and strum the guitar and sing live. That would be awesome. So if you do
Well,
plan on
let's
coming, then
stay in
please
touch
let me
about
know.
that. That sounds like a
Yeah,
plan. We'll talk about that offline because
a hundred percent.